So you convinced your wife that you should buy a Chinese mini excavator. So now that you have it, what are you actually going to do with this thing? Well, here's what I've done, and it's just the beginning. Though so far I've only done this once with this big poplar log that you see, it actually makes it much easier to buck up the log from a comfortable position. And I'm sure I'll be doing a lot more of this as trees need to come down and as time goes on. So I can and sometimes still do this the quote old way that I used to, where I'd roll them into my tractor bucket by hand or make sure the log rounds were small enough that I could lift them. But hey, if I can do it this way, save my back, save a lot of effort, and do it efficiently, this is the way to go. And I've done this quite a lot. Just helps clean up these big logs. If you cut down an old dead tree or something that's in your woods, you cut it up into pieces that are bigger than you might handle, but that this excavator can pick up really easily like this. And it makes for better use of time, and you save your body to use it for more important things. So this is a great use for this little tool. I mean, that piece there, I could never lift that up myself. I could roll it around and move it, but I'd never try to lift that by myself. So being able to lift a big piece like that is just more efficient. I mean, duh, it's a digger, so of course you're going to dig with it. Here I'm just stripping some sod and topsoil off a part of my field because I needed some decent sod material in another part of my property to help smooth out an area, so I kind of came out into my field and stole it. And this was great. It made it really easy to get some decent topsoil that I could use, and my field will never know the difference once it kind of grows in. But here I'm digging out an old brick walkway that we didn't want anymore and had to pull up all these bricks that were set in the earth. Could have done this different ways, but with this machine it sure made it quick and easy and painless. These bases from some old concrete pillars that I knocked over were actually 2 tiers of concrete block in the ground, plus a footer. So being able to dig around them so that I could loosen them up and get the bases out of the ground was invaluable. I never could have done it without my machine. Then I had to get rid of those big pillars somehow, so with no other great idea in mind, I found an applicable spot on my property and dug some trenches so that I could bury the things. Something I never would have done without a digger to do it for me. Everywhere on this property is pretty much completely root bound too, so that gave it a new challenge for any kind of digging. But I can't imagine doing this by hand. This is where Doug really shined for us this year, though. We had to pull a lot of earth away from the house, build some planting beds around the house, build walkways, and a ton of other work. This is just a little taste of it. But without this machine to dig, this work would have just been really a lot of work. It was a lot of work as it was. But being able to have the machine to dig all this material, dig out for edging material, you'll see all of this later, but wow, what a bonus. This was a nasty pile of debris from a shed that I knocked over, an old decrepit shed. It was full of nails, spikes, all kinds of things that would be bad for a rubber-tired vehicle. But Doug, with the tracks, I could get in there, I could pull out big pieces, set them aside so that I could dispose of them more easily. I broke down the whole roof structure, which kind of came down in one piece. And using the excavator, it just made it fun and easy to pick through and break up and pull out pieces in a safe manner, so I didn't have to worry about getting flat tires. And it made it a lot easier when it actually came time to pick up the final debris and get it into a dumpster. It's hard to see, but right behind the machine there's a guy wire from a utility pole, and it was right next to the shed, so when the shed came down in this pile, it was very close to that guy wire. Using Doug to pull out big pieces and get them onto the other side of that wire, where I could then grab them again and help get them into the dumpster, made a huge difference to this process. Knocking these pillars over was about the first thing I did with Doug. I'd only played with it for a few hours, mostly moving snow during the winter, just to kind of get some practice. So I was still very getting used to the controls here and getting used to what Doug could do, but knocking these pillars over, or at least parts of them, getting these tops off, picking up the pieces, it was a great learning experience, and it was also very useful. As it happened, I needed my tractor to actually knock one of these pillars over. The excavator wouldn't do it. But without this, it would have been a much harder process. Those pillars turned out to be extremely sturdily built, much more so than I thought, so there was no easy way to get rid of them. But this made it so much easier and a lot more fun, and I learned a ton about the machine in the process. When we built our house in Maine 20 years ago, the excavator moved all kinds of big rocks that had been part of an old foundation to this spot behind the house that I kind of call a rock garden, and they've been sitting there all this time and stuff's growing up around them. It's just kind of been a feature of the landscape, but I always kind of wanted to clean it up, and now with Doug I could pick up these rocks and start to kind of make something of this area. It's full of rocks. These were all stacked on top of a rocky area that was already there around these trees. So this wasn't virgin ground or anything like that when we started. But it was kind of nice to come in and clean this up a bit. And I was amazed at how well this tiny little excavator could move these rocks. It couldn't pick them all up and raise them high, but it sure could move them along the ground, and with a couple of lifts I got them up to where I wanted so that they could be out of the way. This project was a lot of fun, gave me a lot of seat time, A lot of getting used to the controls, a lot of figuring out what the machine could do. Because I had to move all of these rocks 2 and 3 and even 4 times to get them up the hill and into the pile where I wanted them all to stay. Because the top part of this pile is full of rocks that are way too big for this machine. I couldn't clear it out and move them somewhere else. But I could consolidate it and clear out an area below where I'm sitting here and get the rocks all piled up in a way that we could live with, and just sort of combine them with the big rocks that were a feature of the landscape that we'd never move. So I learned a lot about how to use the thumb and the capabilities of the machine and what I should and shouldn't do, and it was just a great experience and gave me a lot of quality learning time on the seat. I found that learning to use the thumb properly was a lot harder than I expected, quite honestly. And there was no better place for me to do it than in this project. It was a totally unnecessary project. It was really just a great way to play and learn. And learn I did. I learned a lot about picking up big heavy things and how to use the thumb. Made some mistakes, none of which mattered. But it was all good experience for me, and there really is quite a learning curve with these machines. You know, if you're coming to it like me, where you haven't spent your life running heavy machinery other than the tractors that I have, there's still a lot to learn between just getting used to the controls and what they do, and figuring out what you can do all at once, which controls you can combine, which frankly on this little machine can pretty much do one thing at once. There's a few motions you can combine, but for the most part, you're kind of stuck doing one thing at a time, which kind of gets frustrating as you start to gain experience. See here, I managed to get that rock right up on top of the blade. Couldn't figure out a way to get it off, so I had to get out and push it off. All part of the learning curve. No harm done. Here I learned how far you can reach with one of these things at full extent. And again, no harm done, but it's all good experience, and you got to learn these things. These are some overgrown lilacs that we cut down. They'd been on the property forever, but they were no longer very nice. They were overgrown, leggy, full of dead wood. We decided it was time to clear them out. This is the perfect example of what you can do with this little machine. These aren't big stumps. They're not deep stumps. There are other ways to get them out, but this sure made it quick and easy. Shake the dirt out of them. Worked really well, and it was kind of fun. Now obviously there are limits to what kind of stumps you're going to pull out with a 1.5 ton mini excavator and a 14-inch bucket. If you have a big oak or a maple or whatever other kind of tree, I mean, you could spend the rest of your life trying to dig a stump like that out. But let's be honest here, this is not what we're talking about. This is the kind of thing you're going to do with it. Nobody's going to try to do more than they think it's capable of. And if you do, well, you might be surprised just how capable it actually is. But I wouldn't try digging out a 100-year oak stump unless you want to dig a really, really big hole around it.